Hey Dude,
The 90s Called,
with Christine Taylor and David Lascher.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Hey Dude, The 90s Called. I am one of your co-hosts. I'm Christine.
And I'm David.
It's nice to see you, David.
Yes, you too. Welcome back, all the listeners. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thank you for coming back and for listening to our live, I say live, even though it's not live, it was recorded, but it felt live for us because we were in the same room as Jenny, which was so great, wasn't it?
It was so nice to spend a few days with you and yes, interview Jenny Garth in person.
And our panel, we had a great panel. It was a fun group of iHeart podcast hosts, none of whom I had met before. You knew Jenny, obviously, but I didn't know any of them. And I know we were all just sort of running around a lot, but what a fun, cool bunch. And I really enjoyed getting to hear other people's, on the panel, they asked us sort of what is your favorite part about podcasting? And I really felt like a lot of the group had co-hosts, and most everyone sort of said their favorite part was getting to be with the person that they were co-hosting with, which was my answer. But I just thought it was really fun. I thought it was fun. Of course, I'm a reality television fan, so there were some bachelors. There was some Bachelor in Paradise.
I'm a Bachelor fan now. That guy,
Ben Higgins.
Yeah, right. And my daughter texted me immediately. She's like, I just saw the post you did, and I watched that whole season of The Bachelor, and that guy was amazing.
Yeah.
And who was the girl that he was with?
Ashley I. So she was on Bachelor in Paradise. She is a kick in the pants. By the way, this is the fun little behind the scenes story is she spilled her entire coffee right before we went on into my purse. And
let me just sing your praises for a second, because I walked into the green room ready to go out to do our panel in front of a lot of people. And all I saw was that someone had spilled their entire coffee into Christine's handbag or purse and on her dress. And she was smiling and so chill and cool about it. I mean, I don't know. Other girls might have had to take a minute. And you literally went out a minute later, like, it's all good. We're all good.
It was so fun. I'm always that person that I was just glad it wasn't me who did the spilling. I could live with being spilled on.
Yes.
I'd rather be spilled on. I mean, listen, it mostly all went into my purse and a little bit on my dress. It didn't matter. It was a funny story for me to be able to say that, one of the bachelorettes in Paradise spilled her coffee in my bag. She was hilarious.
She
and we were
posted
all,
about
by the
it
way,
too. She posted a whole thing about it.
She did?
Yes.
Oh my God.
How kind you were about it and how bad she felt. But your character is defined in those moments, not the moments where you can easily be, phony, kind and courteous. But when stuff goes down like that and I don't know. I have so much respect for you, for your patience, and just, you were so cool about it.
You're really giving me so much more credit because it was just funny moment. But what I loved is everybody, it wasn't even just people working the festival. It was literally all of us who were going to be on the panel were running and getting paper towels and napkins. And we were all on the floor just trying. And, embarrassingly, I had to take out all the contents of my purse. I had an extra pair of shoes in there. Yeah, it was, it broke the ice.
I walked in right at that moment. Everyone's on their knees cleaning up everything. I was like, what is going on here? Are we walking out? But I have to say that the two actors from Glee, and I'm bad with names. But,
I think it was just one, right? Kevin McHale?
No, and there was a female actress from Glee that was so freaking cool.
Oh, but not on our panel.
She wasn't on the panel.
Got it. Oh, okay. Because I didn't meet her. I didn't. He was wonderful, though.
Kevin McHale.
Yeah.
He was on our panel.
Yes.
Freaking cool as hell, dude. Had great stories. We totally hit it off. And then there was a girl from Glee that we had done the Cheers reading afterwards. And I don't know, we just met really great people. And Jenny was Jenny. she hasn't changed at all.
Well, that was just awesome, I have to say. Like, there is really something about, like, you know, the intimacy of us doing a podcast and seeing each other on Zoom and getting to tell stories and knowing that it's, you know, mostly just, other than some social media stuff, just us talking. You just hear our voices. But being in the room, it really just felt like, I mean, you guys had so much history and it was such a great catch up, but it was so fun for me to just like be able to sit in the room with the person and listen and chat. And it just felt, it felt so comfortable. Like, I didn't feel nervous at all. There's just something about it. It was, and we were all squeezed in on in a little, you know, room on a couch and, but it was so much fun. And I guess on that note, our guest today, Andrea Barber,
iconic character,
none other than Kimmy Gibbler from Full House, is here. So why don't we let her in?
All right, let's go. Andrea Barber.
Hi, guys. Oh, it's so good to see you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm thrilled that you asked. So thank you for inviting me on your show.
Well, we constantly say there is probably no show more, like, as we've talked about, and we've interviewed a lot of people on a lot of shows in the 90s, but there's something about Full House that is so iconically 90s. And honestly, just seeing your face, it's sort of like, oh my gosh, of course, we've never met before, but I know you. I feel like I know you.
I feel like we've met. I feel like we should have met at least.
Right?
Now. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No less than like 190 something episodes. We definitely know you.
David, when you did Full House, did you guys cross paths?
Well, you were in, you were like a DJ love interest, right? Weren't you
yes.
a potential boyfriend? So I think I was probably in that episode. I don't remember meeting you. I'm so sorry, but
you don't remember every single solitary moment that you had.
Oh my God. You know how many guest stars she worked with?
I know.
Hundreds.
I'm making fun of myself for asking.
I was in an episode and we interviewed Jody a couple months ago, who was just amazing.
Oh, she's the best. I love her so much.
Amazing woman. I did an episode called Take My Sister, Please, where her DJ wanted her own bedroom because Stephanie was infringing on her, her space. So I was I was a love interest of DJ's who was inviting her out, and then Jody comes in and starts hazing me. Like, you know, she's like 7 years old and starts like ragging on me.
like roasting, right?
Yeah, like
that's what she does best. Yes. Not much has changed with her. She still likes roasting people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's doing stand-up comedy and she's like literally following in Bob's footsteps. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. So great. Well, I'm sure we met back in the 90s. I'm sure we met at some point. You know, I don't remember if we had a scene together, but, you know, I have missed you 35 years later. It's great to see you again, David.
I think about you all.
Yeah, every day.
Listen, that set was intimidating. You know,
really?
For me, it was, look, I was 20 years old, maybe 21. It was one of my first jobs. And there's John Stamos and Bob and all you guys were established.
Oh, okay.
And,
yeah.
And I remember Bob being so kind. And we established a friendship for many, many years. But it was a lot of star power on that show. And the show was an enormous hit. So to come on as a guest star, you know, it was intimidating.
Oh, I can see. I guess I can see that. Like we never took ourselves too seriously on the show. You know, we were very much a family, as you guys know. So I can see why it was intimidating going into it, but I hope that we were warm and welcoming once you actually got onto the set.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Phew.
I know. I feel like a lot of people say that. A lot of people who we've had on and we've said like, oh, I was a guest star. I did a week on that show. Again, similarly, 35 years ago, no expectation. And, you know, we had Chad Lowe recently who said, was I okay? Because that was a weird time for me. I was so insecure. I was like, I was out of my comfort zone, and I could assure him, yep, you were very nice. I thought you were so cool. And so I think probably 9 times out of 10, the stars of the show do try to make it a comfortable environment for people. It's not always the case, but I found most of the time it is.
Okay, good. Phew. Well, and plus being teenagers at the time too, you never know what you're going to get. Are we going to be moody? Are we going to be cranky, angry, happy? You never know what you're going to get with teenagers.
The last thing you want is someone 20 years later to be like, yo, you were rude to me and you were not kind. What do you do with that?
You're right.
Yeah. Whoa. And having the perspective now, 30 years later as an adult, you're just like, you want to cringe when you think about, oh my gosh. Yeah. So good. I'm glad everyone was nice to you on the set.
Yeah.
So how did the show come about for you? I mean, you were on a soap opera, right? For a while?
I was. Well, I started acting at age 5. So I had, a couple of shows under my belt by the time I auditioned for Full House at age 10. So for me, it wasn't groundbreaking. Like, it was just, that's what you did as a kid actor. You go on a million auditions and it's such a grind. And I hated auditioning as a kid. I still do, even though it's different now as an adult with self-tapes and stuff. But, I hated auditioning. So for me, I was just like, here's another one. But I auditioned for the role of DJ first. Didn't get it. But the producers remembered me and were like, hey, we got this part, the role of the neighbor girl, the wacky neighbor girl, will you come back and read for the role of Kimmy Gibbler? And I did. And I think I was only supposed to be on 1 or 2 times. And that was it. And it turned into this lifelong role for me that has changed
lifelong, right? I mean, like, that's not an exaggeration, which we'll get to, because there was chapter 1 and then there was the next chapter, right? And that's much more recent. But really, how, when you think about it, and we've talked about this before too, like the sliding doors of it all, imagine that was just a 1 or 2 episode thing. Like, it just, who knows what would have happened? But I mean, to have that, I always feel like that's a testament. I feel like we had Mayim Bialik on, and she talked about when she came back after Blossom and did Big Bang Theory, that she was only supposed to do a handful of episodes and then thought that, and same with you, David, for Blossom, right? You only thought you were going to do a few and then ended up being on it.
Well, yeah, right. 1 episode turned into several seasons. Coming off a soap opera, which is so like melodrama. I mean, even though you're a kid, and then you come in, you must have grabbed a lot of laughs in that first episode as a comedic actress, which you obviously excelled in. But how did you find that?
I have no idea. And you're right. Soap opera is so melodramatic. Like, I was on Days of Our Lives for 3.5 years as the original Carrie Brady. And I was, kidnapped. I was brainwashed. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. Nothing better. I had to dress as Santa Claus and sneak into a hospital to visit me in a coma while I was in a coma. So Stefano DiMera didn't, capture him, or, it was all so bizarre. But for me, I was like, I was 6 years old. I was like, this is just another day. To go from that to a situational comedy, that I never actually put those two together. For me, it was just being me. I was just being a kid. I wasn't really trying to be a dramatic actress or a comedic actress. I was just being me. And the writers were writing to my strengths, I think. I don't know how I did it. It wasn't a conscious decision.
You literally found out that you had comic chops on the set of Full House.
Yeah.
In front of a live audience. And with co-stars that have, they're veterans, stand-up comedians.
Yeah.
And here you are, and Jodie as well, just crushing laughs as a child. That amazes me.
Well, a lot of it has to do with your co-stars too. I mean, if you have really great co-stars that you have chemistry with and you connect to, and it's a rhythm thing too with sitcoms and comedy. So I mean, if it's there, if you have a great scene partner, it's magic. And I was lucky to have that in all of the entire cast of Full House, but especially with Candace and Jodie. It was magic. It was magic. It was magic again 30 years later when we came back to do Fuller House. It was just
we'll get to
a blessing. That. Oh yeah, we'll get to
that. As a little kid at home, though, were you a cut up? I mean, were you the person who just always made your family laugh, or you were always coming in and performing and putting on a show, and that's what made your parents or whoever say, like, oh my God, she's got something? Or did you just know, you're like, I want to do that, and watching TV? How does that work?
I was a very shy child. Like I liked playing make believe and pretend, but I was very introverted and very shy. But, so you're like, well, yeah, how did I get into acting? It didn't seem like a natural fit, but my family, we all did community theater together. That was our family hobby. We would all go out and be, in the local production of A Christmas Carol or Scrooge or whatever. And this was during, the early 80s when there was actors strike back in 1980. I got writer's strike on the brain right now. And so they were out looking for fresh talent. And so that's how I got connected to my agent, Judy Savage, at the time with the Savage Agency. And she said, hey, why don't, I had two older brothers. They were interested in it as well. And so my mom was like, okay, we'll have a meeting with Judy Savage. And she signed all three of us on the spot. And that launched our careers. My brothers did it for a long time. They did lots of commercials. They did guest appearances on shows. But once they got to high school, they were over it. They were like, we don't want to do this. Like they hated the audition circuit as well. And they were like, we just want to play sports. So they left the business. But by that point, I had a lot of success. And I'm not patting myself on the back because a lot of it is luck too, as you guys know. You have to be in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and you have to have talent too. But a lot of it is driven by luck as well. So by that point, I was under contract with Full House and having a genuinely wonderful time. So I was not ready to leave the business. I was ready to stop auditioning, but I wanted to stick with it as long as I could. So I did.
I love that. Ready to stop auditioning.
Christine, could you imagine doing community theater with Brian and your parents?
Oh my God. I was laughing thinking about it because that is how I started too, but no one else in my family. I mean, Brian, my brother, got roped into doing it because I think it was sort of like a Saturday morning class we took. And then he ended up in a show and we'd still make fun of him. He could not act to save his life. He couldn't do any of it.
When you do a theater production, even if it's community theater, you bond so heavily with your castmates and the crew and everyone. And if your family's in the show, I mean, what an amazing thing to do with your family. I mean, it must have been so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. And my brothers and we would make fun of it. We're like, of course, we're the family that does theater. Like most families will go out to dinner, do sports or tennis or something. We did community theater. So we kind of poked fun at ourselves, but no, it was fun. And it was great family bonding too,
I did a production of The King and I at Pleasantville Music Theater.
No way!
What? Did you do that show?
Not at Pleasantville, but I did The King and I at age 4.
Who'd you play? At
age 4.
One of the kids. So this was an incredibly, I look back, it was an incredibly well done production with great cast and great actors. And I played the Prince. And and one of the nights, one of the actors who played the guard of the king couldn't make it. And my dad, who is a partner at, a big law firm in New York, a very professional dude, literally got into hair and makeup and a full, outfit, like a king's guard. And my dad played the guard of the king in The King and I. And it was something I will never forget. And my family came for rehearsals. They would drop me off and my sisters would run around. And it was, it was a community theater, but I will never forget it. And it was such an impact on my life and such a bonding thing for my dad.
That's so
How
cool.
brave of your dad to do that, because people who don't have it, we take it for granted when you get into like that, you can kind of just do it. I still get nervous getting up in front of people, but I'm like, okay, I have that. It's wired in there somewhere. I know I'll be able to say the lines. I know I'll be able to do it. But for people who are not actors or performers, for your dad, a lawyer, like a high-powered attorney, to get in costume and get on stage, like I can't even imagine what he must have felt.
Yeah.
I have butterflies just thinking about
Me too. It's like an anxiety dream.
He didn't have any lines, but he did get in a full wardrobe, Siamese, clothing and, the makeup. But what a great place to start for you. And then, so what was it like growing up on the set? Jody said she wouldn't do it any differently, that she felt so secure and supported and like you were a family. But when you look back on it, are you happy that you did it the way you did it?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't change a thing. And it's because of the people. You know, I'm sure Jody's talked about this too, just about how close we all were, not just the cast, but with our crew as well, and our directors and our producers and our writers. Like, we all really bonded a lot. And so it was the people that made the experience so great. And yeah, we were making a great show, and it really touched a lot of people and ended up becoming this really iconic 90s show. But aside from all of that, we all just loved each other so much. And the kids were really well taken care of too. Like, it was always, the kids always came first. You know, it's like the production is important, but the kids are even more important than the production. And you really felt that. You know, there was never any pressure to make the kids cry or, oh, we got to get this shot, so we're going to go over the time allotted for this scene. You know, there was none of that. It was like, okay, the kids are tired. The kids need a break and a snack. That's more important than getting this shot. And that's huge. You don't see that on every TV show. So I give a lot of credit to our showrunners and our producers for taking care of the kids, and then the adults on the show too. Bob and Dave and John and Lori were just like our beloved aunts and uncles. We felt so much love from them and very well taken care of. I have got nothing but fond memories. Would do it again in a heartbeat. You know, again, a Fullest house. I would do many, many iterations of this show because I love the people so much, and the characters are so beloved as well.
We've had so many actors who started out as children and have, you know, stayed in the business. And there's something that I've been dying to say it, and I keep forgetting every time. But the expression, it's very like set expression, but we got to get this shot because they're going to turn into a pumpkin. Do you that shot of like because the kid actors they had to work within certain, you know, time frame. Like, they could only work a certain number of hours. They had to be in school a certain number of all of those things. Right. And I swear on my life, I didn't hear it until maybe like in the last like decade or something, when I was, I think, playing somebody's mother in something. Mm-hmm. and I just heard, we got to go. She's turning into a pumpkin. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't even, and obviously when you think about it, it makes sense. But do you remember that? Have you guys had experience with that expression?
I think that's a new term, or like you said, within the last few years. Because I never heard it when we were children. Okay, but yeah, I hear it now that I play the mom or the adult or the principal or whoever I'm playing. Now I'm like, oh, the kid's gonna pumpkin. We gotta get, we gotta move on. So it's a great term. I use it. When I'm out.
Mary-Kate and Ashley were like babies. There are child labor laws like all the way down, but they probably could work an hour or two a day.
Oh, probably, yeah. They were 9 months when we started, so it was probably I'm not clear on what the exact labor laws were, but we probably no more than an hour. That's why we had 2 of them, because we could double our money.
There's always twins that play a young guy, but like, so you're on tape night, you're all doing your stuff, but like for the character Michelle, would they like literally shoot that separately and have one of the two, whoever was in a better mood, sort of like sit there with a baby wrangler and give them the, what's up, dude, or whatever they were saying? Was that shot separately?
Yes and no. We would do pre-tapes on Thursdays. So any scene that was difficult, which was with kids, babies, animals. So we would pre-tape those scenes, and it kind of was whoever was in a better mood or willing or more outgoing that day. And the Olsen twins did have a baby wrangler. Her name was Andrea Later. We're all still very close with her. She was one of our studio teachers on the show as well, and she became the default baby wrangler for the Olsens. And she would be off stage, and she would be like, saying, "You got it, dude." And so they were just parroting a lot. I mean, when they were little, like 1, 2, you don't know how to memorize things when you can't even read a script, So they were just parroting what Adria was doing off stage. We would pre-tape all of those scenes, but then on tape night, we would, the Olsens would come in right before the show because we only had so many hours with them, and they would shoot in front of the audience too. And if one wasn't working, we'd swap them out and bring in the next one.
Ashley, you're out.
Disposable.
Mary Kate, come on in.
Well, and they went through phases too, where, you know, one of them would be more into acting than the other one was. You know, they like any kid, you go through phases where you're more outgoing or more into the
attention or the camera or exactly. Wanting the attention versus being shy. And
totally.
Those are those things you always take for granted until you're, you know, working in it and you realize how many moving parts it takes and, you know, all of the people involved and the lollipops and the treats and the snacks. Same with animals.
All right, give me a thumbs up and I'll give you a lollipop. Ready? Go. I actually played their uncle in a show called Two of a Kind.
Oh, also you did? Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, but they were teenagers and I probably did the only thing they've ever done that wasn't a wild success, but we did one season and they were super cool and such professionals. But like, yeah, when you grow up on a set, you learn a lot of important lessons, work ethic and professionalism and being on time and all that stuff. Has that carried over? Because I want to talk about where you went after Full House, but like, is that whole experience on the show has shaped who you are? I mean, it must have been a valuable time.
Absolutely. I mean, even though we were respected as kids on the set, it was very much an adult job and we were expected to work hard, you know, and show up, like you said, show up on time, know your lines. And that came down from our mothers too, because our mothers were like, okay, yeah, you're going to be on time. We're going to rehearse lines in the car, you know, on the freeway, on the way to the set. So, you know, my mom always made sure I was very well prepared as well. But yeah, I didn't think about that until now, but yeah, you develop a really fine-tuned work ethic. And it's interesting doing it as an adult. So when I went back to Fuller House, I know we're not there yet, but it was interesting watching the child actors on Fuller House as an adult, because I would see them, you know, playing with props and I'd be like, no, you don't play with props. Like the props on the set. This is a hot set. You don't go in there. Yeah. You don't bring your lunch onto the hot set and eat it on the Fuller House couch. You just don't do that. So it's interesting, some of those things that stick with you decades later that I wasn't even really conscious of at the time. So yeah, it's like becomes muscle memory. When you do something for 8 years as a child, it's like, it's muscle memory. It's with you for life. I'm convinced that that's why I could come back to Fuller House and pick up just like no time had passed, because it's muscle memory. It's like you learn a language when you're 10 years old and you become fluent for life. Whereas if you would do that, if you tried to learn a language as an adult, it takes a lot more effort.
Yeah. So anything you learn as a child is just innate. It becomes part of you.
Oh yeah. You're like a sponge when you're a kid. You just absorb it all.
It's so true. So wait, so was it age 10 to 18?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. All my awkward formative years are all there. All the bad perm, the acne, the braces, you know, it's all there on display.
Forever. Forever. Streamable. Attainable. Anyone can find it and screenshot it and send it to you. The joy of us all growing up in the 90s on television.
Right.
And then when you have kids of your own, like it's just a constant like they're just constantly like embarrassed and they're like, Mom, you know, they make fun of me all the time. It's not cool to have Kimmy Gibbler as your mom growing up.
Right.
It will be cool. I promise you, it will come around, and then you'll actually feel like the child. Like sometimes my daughter is 21 now. Will be like, "Oh, you were so cute, Mom." I was like, "Don't feel sorry for me that I grew up in the 90s and had to look like that and went through the bad terms."
Mommy.
But it's just, exactly. I love when they're sort of like, "Oh, you're so cute," and they're the parent now. Mm-hmm. But how old are your kids?
I have two. I have a 19-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl. They just had birthdays, so 19 and 16.
Right. So you're getting there.
I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it. Yep. I get all the, teenagers, they're just a blessing and a curse, all wrapped into one great package.
We talk a lot about that. Yeah.
You still look like a teenager, though. You really do. You really do.
Yeah,
I'm being honest.
Anyone would recognize you as your character when you were 15. It's crazy.
That's so crazy. I know. And people say that a lot. They're like, you look just like you did on Full House. And I was kind of offended for a long time. I was just like, have you seen Kimmy Gibbler on Full House? Like, I don't want to look like that. Like, she was a hot mess. But I take it as a compliment now. Now that I'm 46, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, I'll take that.
Yeah, because some actors, and this is not a put down, but when you haven't seen them in 30 years, it's like, whoa, it's whatever. Not everyone ages as gracefully as you have. But
thank you.
Full House ended with a massive audience. But it did end. And what I'm reading here is because the show got so expensive, right? There were so many big stars on it, but it did end. And how was your reaction to the ending of the show? Because I want to talk about you going off to England and getting your master's and all this stuff. Were you ready for it to end, or was it like kind of a crushing thing?
It was a mixed bag for me. It was shocking because we didn't know we were being canceled until about 3 weeks before we taped the final episode.
Oh my!
So we didn't. That's why the finale is so weird. Like, Michelle falls off a horse and gets amnesia. It's a 2-parter. Like, everyone's like, this is such a weird series finale, and we're like, the writers didn't have time to write a proper series finale. So I was really sad, just anticipating that final taping and doing our final cast huddle. And then our final curtain call. I mean, it's on YouTube out there somewhere of our final curtain call. And we're just
a lot of tears,
we're all crying and hugging each other. And I still get emotional when I watch that. So it was really sad to say goodbye because we didn't know if we'd ever keep in touch again. We certainly didn't think we'd come back 30 years later to do a second iteration of the show. I was very sad, but at the same time, I was in my first year of college by that point. And so I was very ready for this next chapter of my life. I've been a child actor since I was 5 and doing that grind. And I was kind of like, you know what? I am ready for a fresh start. I am ready to just move into the dorms at college and be just a student for the first time in my life and not have a full-time job at the same time. So once we finally did our final bow and the show ended, I was like, okay, that was great. I'm done. And I was ready to quit. I was done with acting. I was going to college. I was living in the dorm. I was feeling like a normal person for the first time in my life. And I loved it. I loved learning new things. Like, I didn't study acting or film or anything like that. I studied English literature in college. And then as you alluded to, I did get a master's degree in England. And so I loved it, just being a student and learning all these new things and finding out where my passion was, since for however many years, almost 2 decades, my passion had been acting, but I was discovering new parts of myself. And that was very exciting as a new adult.
Right. With such appreciation for it, just to be doing what a normal kid would be doing, going and living in a dorm.
And I imagine just getting to know yourself in a way that you hadn't before. There is something when you're a child actor and you're, like you said, you're being driven to places, and then, obviously in your teen years, and you could sort of be there on your own, I would imagine. But I feel like there was still a sort of, I'm still being told exactly where to be at what time, when my lunch is, when our time off is. There's not a lot of agency. Yes, exactly. Somebody said that once. People would tell us when we could go to the bathroom. Like, it was to be finished with that and be able to really get to know yourself and make decisions about, oh yeah, I actually really like this and I want to explore this more, or I can do whatever I want right now. I don't have a call time. And, I would imagine that was very empowering.
It was empowering. It was very liberating. And I think a lot of college students go through that also to a certain degree. But it was a great time and I loved it. And the kids I went to a small private liberal arts college called Whittier College. And I felt so normal there. Like, the kids were not, if they were impressed by my celebrity, they never showed it. Like, everyone was just so cool about it. Like they didn't pepper me with questions or ask for pictures or autographs or anything like that. It was just like we were all just students going
the same, right? In the same, right? Exactly.
So I felt very much on equal footing with all of my friends and my college classmates. It was awesome. I loved it.
So the years between Full House and Fuller House, you go and get your master's, you go to college, you get your master's. Did you become a teacher?
I didn't. No, I actually worked in international education. So I was a study abroad facilitator. So when I was in college, I did study abroad like a lot of kids do. I went to Denmark for a semester and lived with a host family and did the whole 9 yards for a semester. And that too was so empowering and liberating. I learned so much about myself as an American living in a foreign country.
Right.
That was transformative. And I thought, I want to be here. So that's where I worked, was as a study abroad facilitator for 2 different colleges, helping kids decide where they wanted to go abroad, helping them find the right program or which country they wanted to go to. I got to do a lot of traveling too, to check out these different programs in different countries.
Oh, how cool.
Awesome.
It was so great. And I would have kept doing that. But then I started having babies. And so it became a juggle. And I'm like, I can't just, jet off to Ireland at a moment's notice when I have young infants at home. And so I left that career and became a full-time stay-at-home mom for several years to raise my babies when they were little. That was wonderful too. I loved that as well. And then I got a divorce after that and, got depressed and went through a major depression. So lots of just real life experiences.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Lots of life experiences. And, so it was a good 20 years between Full House and then getting the phone call about Fuller House. And it came at such a great time. I've mentioned this on other interviews before about just the timing of all of it. Literally in the middle of a divorce, I had just signed my divorce papers and I was so sad and so lost. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And am I going to be okay? And are my kids, are they going to be okay? And like 4 days after I signed those divorce papers, I got the call from Jeff Franklin. He said, I have an idea for a show, for a reboot. Would you be willing to come back to reprise the role of Kimmy Gibbler?
How awesome. That's the
like
universe.
That's
the universe.
Yes, right, David? I just got goosebumps. I feel like there are no coincidences with these things. Right. The way, even when you talked about being much younger and luck plays into it, it's like, yes, but there is something, bigger.
There's something cosmic out there.
Yes, very much.
There's a larger presence out there that's looking out for us. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you stayed very busy during that period of time. And like you said, you were living real life. You were going through real life ups and downs, getting to know yourself. Were there moments, sort of weaved through that period where you thought like, I kind of miss it? Or you'd see something or see a movie or a TV show or something and say like, oh, I might like, did the seed stay planted or was it really like a closed chapter of your life?
I think somewhere deep inside of me, that seed was still, I still questioned it. And after I graduated from college, I entertained it briefly because I didn't, I think a lot of recent college graduates have that panic. They're like, what am I going to do now? Because I've been in school.
Right. It's the big question.
For 21 years. So yeah, so I had that moment of panic and I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to go back to do what I've always done, which is be an actor. So I went out on one audition at the age of 21. And I was just like, I cannot do another audition. Like my heart was not in it anymore.
We've been there.
Like, I don't have the drive. I don't have the drive to do this anymore. And that's when I was like, okay, pivot. I'm going to pivot and do study abroad in international education and just, immerse myself in that world. And that was a great decision for me at the time. But yeah. And so it surprised me when Jeff Franklin called and said, will you come back and be an actor again? Will you be Kimmy Gibbler again? I didn't even hesitate to say yes. And maybe that's because it's something I knew, I know the character of Kimmy Gibbler inside and out because I did it for so long as a kid. But it was really because I wanted to come back and be with the people again. I wanted to come back and be with Bob and Dave and John and Candace and Lori and Jody, you know, just to get to come back and work with them every day and see them every day and return to these characters. I mean, how could I say no to that? It was an instant yes for me.
Had you stayed in touch with everyone?
Oh yeah. We never lost touch. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they promoted Fuller House as the big reunion. Like we hadn't seen each other in 20 years. Right. I'm like, no, we still see each other, just not every day because we're not working together every day. But yeah, we still went to baby showers and weddings, and we saw each other for all of these life milestones. Or, you know, if we were all in town, because people were kind of spread out living in different parts of the country at that point. But whenever we were all back in town, you know, John Stamos would be like, hey, let's go to, you know, Tony's Tavern in Malibu and hang out there and have dinner. And it's like, okay, you know, so we still kept in touch, even though we were.
But did you know they were working on pitching a reboot, or you had no idea? It was just a blind phone call.
Well, I didn't know until Jeff called. Like I was a part of pitching it. Yeah, no, I was part of the development of Fuller House, but I didn't know that Jeff was thinking about it until he called me. I didn't know that this.
Oh, I see.
The seed.
Oh, so he said we're going to start pitching this and try to get it going. We just want you to be on board.
Yeah, you had to have like the three, because it was supposed to be the reverse. Instead of 3 men raising 3 little girls, it was 3 women raising 3 little boys. So, you know, you had to have your core characters. You had to have DJ and Stephanie and Kimmy.
Right.
So I think once the three women were on board, then we were like, okay, let's develop this together and pitch it and try to sell it.
Jody talked about the pitching of the show, right? You guys went around to a lot of different places, and she had interesting stories about the pitching of the show. And I think even the Netflix meeting, she might have not even been able to go that day, but whatever. The Fuller House show was groundbreaking for Netflix, just as like House of Cards in the drama department. I mean, Fuller House really brought Netflix to a large audience, and you know, Netflix is Netflix now, but like, what an amazing time to help, you know, solidify this incredible monster company.
It's so interesting how it happened, because we all thought Fuller House was going to be a slam dunk. We're like, we're going to sell
right. I would think so.
We're going to have people coming at us with offers.
Bidding more.
No, it was cricket.
Like, that's what she said.
Yeah, we went to ABC Family. We went to Nickelodeon. We went to all these places. And they were all like, yeah, that sounds good. But nobody was willing to take a risk on it because no one had really done a reboot before. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, everybody's doing reboots. So it's very popular now. But at the time, it wasn't a thing. And so it wasn't an instant sell. You know, we had to really try to convince people. And at one point, you know, I was convinced it wasn't going to happen. It had been at least a year and a half of pitching and no takers. And I was like, wow, like, talk about feeling washed up and like a has-been. I'm just like, nobody wants this? Like, what?
Yeah, there's nothing more demoralizing than when you have a project you feel is so great and that people are going to love. And you even, I'm sure, as the pitch, because you guys all knew each other, was probably so like dialed in and great and energetic and the whole thing, the whole package. And to just get nothing.
Crickets.
That's the joy of this industry, everybody.
Is that the joy or the frustration?
Well, that's my sarcasm. That's my sarcasm. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, so finish the story, because I feel like Jody told us then what it was that happened, right? Because it wasn't someone who was at Nickelodeon who.
Oh, Brian Wright. Yeah. So
right?
after we pitched to Nickelodeon, Brian Wright was working for Nickelodeon at the time. So he sat in on that pitch meeting, which was kind of a disaster. I can't remember why. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know why. I think we were all just frustrated that nobody wanted to buy the show. And we were like, okay, here we are. Let's put on our happy faces and try to show us what our great chemistry is. You know, look at us now.
That's right. We still look good.
Song and
we
dance.
still love each other.
No, and so and that was the reason why they had Jody and Candace and I on at the pitch meetings too. Not only because we were part of the development, but because they're like, look at the chemistry; it's still there. You know, they still love each other.
Right.
And so, yeah, we were just so frustrated at that point. And I think it was after the Nickelodeon pitch where I was just like, this is it. This is going nowhere. This has been a whole lot of work for nothing. But then Brian Wright moved over to Netflix, to their new family TV department, or whatever they were calling it at the time. And it was really Brian Wright who was like, hey, Netflix people, you want to buy this because this is gold right here. And he convinced them. He convinced them to buy the show. And
so Brian Wright was right.
Yeah. Brian Wright
no pun intended, but
right.
Honestly,
Right.
that decision was huge for the monster company that Netflix has become, I think.
I think he was critical because I don't know if anyone would have bought the show at the time based on the reaction we were getting and how many pitches we did and we got denied. He was pivotal. Like the Fuller House might have never happened without that. If Brian Wright hadn't been there at Nickelodeon, if he hadn't moved over to Netflix and the show never would have happened.
Yeah, it's all these ifs. It's all these moments, and by the way, then all it really takes is that one person to believe in you,
right? Who has that vision, yep.
Right?
True.
That's such a great story. So, and Jody also told us, and maybe you were going to say this, David, that when you guys came back, you were back on the same stage too.
Yeah, how crazy!
Stage 24 at Warner Brothers.
What are the odds?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it felt like
it was right as Friends was ending, right? It was right, or I mean, Friends had taken over after the original Full House was ending, right?
Yes,
Friends moved in, right?
Stage 24 right after we did,
right?
And then there were a couple of other big shows like Mike and Molly, or I can't remember who else filmed it. But Stage 24 has had a lot of great shows on it. There's some good juju on that
lucky stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like driving into the Warner Brothers lot again for the first time. And you got to show your ID at the security gate and everything. And the security guard was just like, welcome home.
Oh my God.
I'm home.
What a
it was
trip.
So cool walking in there. Like that, we had the same hair and makeup room, the same props room. We had not the same dressing rooms because, Jody and Candace and I moved up to the adult.
That's what she said.
You graduated nicer than the kid dressing room.
You graduated.
So,
the best.
But it was it was such a time warp to go back. And when I saw the set for the first time, it hadn't been painted yet. So everything was like a sepia tone. It was all like brown and kind of dusty. And so I literally felt like I was walking into an archaeological site, like the set had been buried for 30 years and we were there just unearthing it. Because it was such a time warp to walk in and see, the couch again and the kitchen set with the same plaid curtains, like the same plaid couch. I was like, it was such a time warp. It was like walking into your childhood home again and everything had been preserved exactly the way it was. It was such a trip.
Oh,
how incredible. Yeah. They say you can't go home again, but not many people get to go, redo their childhood like that.
Yeah.
It must have been such a trip.
It was very special. And just having the perspective as an adult to get to go back and do this again, you realize as an adult how fleeting it is. As a kid actor, as a kid, at least for me, I treated it as a hobby. This was my after school sport. Some kids play soccer, some do gymnastics. I was an actor. And it happened to be a very professional job where I made money as well. But it was always a hobby for me. So when I came back as an adult, I was like, oh, no, this was special. Like this was a very special thing. This doesn't happen all the time. So as adults, we were all so appreciative of getting to go back and get to do it for 5 seasons too. We were very lucky and sad when Fuller House ended too, but never say never. We came back once. Maybe we'll come back again.
Anything can happen.
Yeah. People love that show. And now it's embedded in 2 generations, I think. Like, 'cause, people our age watched the original.
Mm-hmm.
And my youngest, loved Fuller House.
Yep.
I love that. That's so great. It is a very multi-generational show. I hear that a lot from people our age who are just like, I love getting, I watched Full House as a kid with my parents, and now I get to watch Fuller House with my kids. It's just a very full circle moment. It's great. And I just love that people keep birthing new generations of Full House fans and Fuller House
Keep
fans.
them coming.
Did your kids watch any of the old Full House, or were they a part of the new? Like, because our kids, I've talked about this a lot. Like, as they've gotten older, they'll go back and look at some like films or things my husband and I, but we were never like, hey, come watch this thing that I'm in. But I've noticed that they've found things over the years, but for a period of time, it was like, I'm not watching. Like, I'm not watching what you guys did. Like, it was a very disconnected thing. But how was it timing wise? Because your kids would have been like how old were they when you went back?
When I went back to Fuller House, they were elementary school aged.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's normal for kids are very disinterested in their parents' lives and career. Like that's just across the board. Doesn't matter if you're an actor or not.
Absolutely.
So mine were very disinterested in anything to do with my life. When my son was in second grade, he came home. That's when kids sort of kind of become aware of like things outside of themselves. So my kid, my oldest, Tate, he was in second grade. He came home from school one day and he said, "Mom, kids are starting to ask me questions about you." And they're, how come every kid at school has seen Full House except for me? And I'm your son. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. I never thought to show them the show because I was just like, they have no interest in me.
Right.
So I sat them down that day and I was like, all right, let's turn it on. Let's watch. And they were mortified. They were just like,
of course,
you look weird. And then not only did I look like a teenager, but I was wearing the wacky Kimmy Gibbler clothes.
You're right. Turn it off.
Yeah, they were embarrassed. They were like, "Why are you wearing that, Mom? Why are you acting so goofy?" Like they were a little weirded out by the whole thing. So I'm like, "All right, let's abort this. Like, they don't need to watch it." And then when I went back for Fuller House, they still were just kind of like, they weren't really into it at first. They were just this thing that Mom goes and does. But a couple of seasons into Fuller House, they started coming to the set with me more regularly, more than just like the Friday night audience.
Oh, that kids, that's special.
That was it. Once they came on the set and they started to bond with the kids on the show. They started hanging out in the schoolroom and hanging out with the kids a lot. They were just like, you know what, this is really cool. And then they wanted to be extras on the show. So I was like, all right. So I brought them on for a couple of, to be like the kid at the birthday party or the kid in the backyard for the play date or whatever. And that was cool. That was cool for like an hour. And then they're like, okay, we're over it. This is too much waiting around.
You were the cool mom for 1 hour. That you got to appreciate that.
Oh, it was great.
That's a long time.
But then it was too much work. They're like, the call times are too early. We don't want to be here at 7 a.m. We don't want to sit. It's so much sitting around. And I'm like,
so boring.
Not glamorous, guys.
So boring, right?
It is not a glamorous profession. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. Hurry up and wait. Like they were more impressed with Crafty.
The craft service. I was going to say, my kids always loved the craft service. They called it, what did they call it? Craft City. My kids always say, I want to go to Craft City.
Crafty's the best. It's always it's just the place to gather and just eat and talk. I
love that you guys kept the 90s feel good vibe of the show, because there's a lot of reboots. Not only a lot of the new shows are so dark and so cynical, but even like they took the Archie comics and turned it into Riverdale, where they're murderers and doing, really dark stuff. But you guys really kept that like just feel good family vibe of the 90s show that you guys originally did.
Yeah, and I attribute that to Jeff Franklin, the creator of both Full House and Fuller House. We trust him implicitly. Like he's going to keep the legacy of the show pure. It's going to be the same feel good, family focused show that we all grew up with in the 90s. There'd been talk, before Fuller House about, oh, hey, let's come back and do, a movie of the week or something like that. And it just didn't feel right at the time. But, when Jeff Franklin and John Stamos got together and they were like, you know what, let's really make this happen and let's do it right. That's when everybody was on board. We were like, okay, yes, we want to keep the legacy of the show alive, and we want to keep it just like it was in the 90s. It's about family. It's about your chosen family too, not just your biological family who you grow up with. It's the people you choose to love and live with and raise your kids with. So
true. I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast. I feel like people miss that time. Everyone doesn't have to be dark or a billionaire, or a housewife or whatever, you can just
it doesn't all have to be larger than life. It can just be a love letter to family and to relationships and to the simplicity of it. And I think we talked about it, with Jody as well, but it was really like a period of time where nothing, for the original, where families would get together and sit and watch it together. And it was, we talk about it all the time because this is a 90s podcast, but that appointment television, you didn't have a million options on a given night. You had, if you loved a show, then you set aside that time and you went to the one, for most of us, we all had like a TV in the living room and we would all watch it together, right?
One TV,
it wasn't like,
that's it.
Not everybody had devices in their room. Like I've made the joke that we will be in the same home and like there's 4 different things streaming or everybody's watching different stuff or we're watching the same thing and my son is texting me from his room, and it's like, what are we doing? So that's why I love those moments even now. And I think for us, COVID, the pandemic kind of, we found a way back to sort of like, let's have a movie night. You pick a movie one night or when we're on vacation when we can with the kids, like where it's sort of like, you show us something and we'll, but I do think that is the heart of Full House. So to be able to come back and do it in sort of, as I just said, like a love letter to the original and have it be equally as successful and beloved is like what a gift and what a success.
Yeah, I think you're right. The 90s was like the last decade of this pure innocence before smartphones, before devices, before 9/11, before political strife. Like there's really this hunger for nostalgia for the 90s. And that's why, your podcast is so successful. And then these 90s conventions are so successful.
Right.
Because people have such great memories of appointment TV and watching, Friday night TGIF lineup with their family. And there's just such a disconnectedness now with families. Like you were describing. And I'm guilty of that too. Yeah. You text your kid, hey, you text your
we
kid
all
from
are.
the other room.
From the other room. I know. We're all so guilty of it. I mean, it's too convenient, right?
Too convenient. I agree.
But thank you for giving everyone 5 years of a little taste of the 90s again, because that Fuller House was amazing. And you guys did help make Netflix what it is, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, that's very generous. Thank you. I mean, Netflix is a juggernaut in its own right, but I think we were the first multicam sitcom that Netflix ever developed, and the first family show, like for kids and for families. And so, I love thinking that we were a small part of that. That's very kind. Thank you.
Well, I think the next thing is the Fullest House.
I'm here for it.
And like everyone's just having more babies and you're just going to keep filling it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Babies, kids.
Yeah. Grandkids.
The house just keeps getting fuller. I'm ready to be Grandma Gibbler. I can only imagine.
Grammy Gibbler.
Grandma Gibbler.
Perfect.
You're going to get a call in 30 years. Yeah. Andrea, it's Jeff Franklin.
Grammy. I love it. Grammy Gibbler.
I love it. I'm so here for that.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us today.
Yeah,
you guys are great.
So wonderful to meet you and good luck with everything. And thank you again.
Oh, you guys are awesome. It's so wonderful to talk to other former child actors. It's just, I feel like we have, even though we've never, Christine, we've never met. And then, David, we haven't seen each other in at least 35 years. I do feel like this kindred spirit with you guys just because we grew up in such similar circumstances. So thank you for welcoming me on your podcast. I love it so much.
Thank you.
This was a great conversation.
It was awesome.
Send our love to all your castmates because
I will.
Special people.
Yes.
I love them. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank you so
Andrea.
much.
Thanks. Bye.
Very cool.
What a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Her story reminded me so much of Mayim in a way, of really like making that choice, like being upset that the show is ending and having the sort of, loss of it, but then like really pivoting, diving into college and embracing it in a way. Right. That's why I really asked the question, because when it's been such a part of your life, like I just wondered if it was always like that tug of war of like, oh, am I ever going to get back? But she sounded like that one audition. And by the way, we've all had that one audition where you're like, I never want to do this again.
I done.
Hate this. This is horrible. So, but for her to be able to have gotten an education and, had that opportunity to sort of learn new things and travel in such a way, she's really, really, what a bright light and I really
so
loved
grateful and appreciative for all of it, right?
Yeah.
And like honest about her divorce and how sad she got and that Jeff Franklin called
Yeah.
at the exact right time. You know, we all have those moments where the universe shines on you and says, you're doing the right thing. I know it's hard right
Right.
now, but here's a little sprinkle of fairy dust. You're going to be okay.
Yes. And to
It's
take
like
it
magic.
and embrace it and the gratitude. I mean, it really is like you
Yes.
could hear her gratitude. And, yeah, that was great. Cause again, like one of those people that I only knew over the years of watching on TV, had never met. And, you know, just super cool. So I really love that.
Yeah. We've
Yeah.
been so lucky.
Thank
Our
you.
guests are amazing. And I'm coming to New York in a couple weeks, and
Yes.
we have an incredible guest.
We do.
And we're going to...
See, I'm going to tell you to just stop talking now because you usually, the
I
more
won't-
you go on, you usually give something away or at least hint at it. So just stop your talking right now.
I'm zipping it right now, but I'm so excited about
Yeah.
this one.
And we'll be in the room together again, which is great, which is,
Yeah.
you know, so, and yeah, I think like we're going to try to have dinner with Ben and
Yes.
Jill, and we're going to try to like, you know, to get the gang together. So that'll be really fun. Oh, maybe even like Kelly or John will come into the city. I don't know. I don't know how long you're going to be here, but maybe we get a little hey dude thing.
Hey
happening.
dude part 2. That'd
Yeah.
be sick.
Let's like have a meal or something, coffee or lunch.
Okay.
All right. We'll keep you posted on that, listeners.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed Andrea Barber as much as we did. And thank you for listening so much, Christine and I. I mean, I'm loving doing this with you. And it's just so
the
much
best. And you guys are the best fans. So thanks. We'll see you. We'll be back soon next
fun. Yeah.
week.
We'll be back here next week, and have a great week and weekend, everybody. And Christine, I'll see you in New York soon.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe and give us 5 stars.
And please follow us on Instagram at Hey Dude, the 90s Called. See you next time.